It's Mickety TV. And this is my Minnesota Vikings 2018 season, week number 7, game number 7, analysis and recap, in which the Minnesota Vikings defeated the New York Jets by a score of 37-17. And this was kind of an interesting game. The first half of this game was very low scoring. The Vikings at halftime were winning by a score of 10-7. And during that half, there were 5 punts by the Vikings, maybe even more than that. But I know there were 5 3 and outs in the game in the first half, which was kind of concerning because you don't want to see your offense going out there and punting the ball all the time and not running off that much clock. But it was happening on both sides of the ball too, apparently. So the Jets were having problems on offense. The Vikings were having problems on the offense. The defenses were pretty strong in the first half. Second half, the Vikings offense did much better, scoring an additional, 27 points. So they did score a bunch of points in the second half and finally got things together. But overall, I'll talk a little bit later on, there was just too many punts and too many 3 and outs in this game, which is a little concerning, and like I've mentioned before in previous reports. But let's get on to the stats of the game and players of the game. Kirk Cousins, Minnesota Vikings, number 8. Quarterback was 25 of 40 on passing with 241 yards passing with 2 TDs and a quarterback rating of a 95.9. Pretty decent game from the quarterback. Latavius Murray, not a 100-yard game today, although he had 15 carries for 69 yards and 2 TDs, so he had 2 big major TDs in this game. And then our big wide receiver today, or in that game, was Adam Thielen. He had 110 yards receiving with 1 TD, a total of 9 catches. The other wide receiver that got the TD catch on a 33-yard play, which looked to be like an astounding catch when he caught it, Aldrick Robinson on a 33-yard pass route scored a TD. And then kind of an interesting stat here, Stephon Diggs had 8 receptions, but only 33 yards, which was an average of 4.1 yards. You rarely ever see that with a wide receiver have that many catches and only get 33 yards. A lot of small, short type passes thrown to him apparently, but he couldn't get much to happen out of it, probably because the Vikings were trying to get in couldn't really pass that much anyways against the Jets. I don't know what the deal was, but it's kind of a weird stat. Offense, on the offensive line, not too bad in regards to, there was only 1 sack given up, which is good, but there were 7 QB hits, so that's something I don't really care to see happen that much in a game. There were 8 passes defended, so there was a lot of defense going against the passing. But the offense gave up 10.5 tackles for losses in this game, which is too much. I don't like seeing that. So, hopefully the offense, though, is gelling together. I mean, they only gave up 1 sack, but the 10.5 tackles for losses is unacceptable, and hopefully that'll be made up for next week. We'll have to wait and see, or next game. On the defensive side of the ball, we have Eric Kendricks, number 54. He had 5 tackles, 5 solo with 2 passes defended. And then we have Harrison Smith, number 22, 5 tackles, 5 solo, 2 passes defended, 1 interception. And then the next guy, Holton Hill, number 24, 3 tackles, 3 solo, 2 passes defended, and an interception. And then Trey Waynes also had 3 tackles, 4 passes defended, and an interception. So we had a total of 3 interceptions from the defense, which is excellent to see. Daniel Hunter was all over the field again. It was great to see. He got 4 tackles, 1 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 2 QB hits. Very good game from him. And then we had a combo package with Jaron Crease coming in with 5 tackles, 3 solo, and a half a sack shared with Jaleel Johnson, I believe, for 5.5 sacks. But anyways, Jaron Crease had a half a sack, 1.5 tackles for losses, and 1 pass defended. Jaleel Johnson had 4 tackles, 2 solo, a half a sack, half a tackle for loss, and a pass defended. Overall, like I said on our defense, we had 3 interceptions. Huge to get turnovers like that. And I believe we had a fumble recovery from one of our players as well on defense on the other team. The other team had 5 fumbles. Unfortunately, the Vikings only got 1 fumble recovery, but hey, at least we were forcing the ball out of their hands. Overall, the defense had 3 sacks, 6 tackles for losses, 12 passes defended, with 5 QB hits. Our punter had a very busy day. Rarely do you ever see this much action from a punter, but yeah, I just want to make note of it. Matt Weil had 8 punts, 382 total yards, 47.8 average. 4 of those punts were in the 20, so that's good to see. 4 out of those 8 punts, really good to see in the 20. And his longest one was 66 yards, so that's not too bad. And then Dan Bailey, our field goal kicker, he was 3 of 4 on field goals. Forgettable, I guess, this time because it was such a high-scoring game, and it was outdoors too, so I'm sure the weather had a part in that. But he was 4 of 4 out of extra points, so that's great to see. And we want to see that. We don't want to miss extra points. So overall, the Vikings started out slow in this game, but then finished off strong, heavily defeating the Jets. It looked like about pretty much halfway through the 3rd quarter, the Vikings pretty much had this game in hand. And then finally, we finally got to see some killer instinct from Mike Zimmer, and the Vikings pretty much put the Jets out of their misery at the beginning of the 4th quarter. So it was good to see some, things going on the field, which indicated that the Vikings were going to just mop up the floor with them. The one thing, though, is defensively, we experienced a lot of injuries. We had like about 4 or 5 defensive players get really dinged up during the game. And that's going to carry on through the next game against the Saints. So that's going to be tough. Mike Zimmer, like I said, I don't like his approach, especially on offense. We had 7 3-and-outs in this game. 7. That's unacceptable. That's too many 3-and-outs. And I don't care how bad the weather was. You got to figure out something to be able to combat that. Because if you play in the playoff game outdoors, you got to be able to figure out how to overcome the elements in that game. So overall, though, oh yeah, and then on 3rd down conversions, the Vikings were 2 out of 15. So that's not a good conversion rate either. That's totally unacceptable. I don't care what the weather was. A great coach would figure out ways to convert on 3rd down. So that's my analysis of the game. I'm glad they won. I'm glad I was wrong on my prediction of the game, but hey, I can handle that. And I will be giving you my prediction shortly after this video, or within a few hours, of the Vikings versus the Saints game. I will talk to you guys later. Bye. Oh, and Skol Vikings.